My name is Danica, and today I have a bookshelf tour for you. A couple of people have requested that I do a tour of my new background, so I thought I'd try to do that today. I'm going to show you the non-lesbian books first, which are down at the bottom and you can't see them. It might be a little bit awkward because they're directly on the floor, but I'm going to give it a try. So these are my read non-lesbian books, just the one shelf of them. To start off, I have my Douglas Adams collection. I have the radio scripts, the 2 books of them, and then I have all of his other books. Well, I guess not all of them because I don't have this nonfiction one. But I've got an audio book that actually has Douglas Adams as one of the characters. And then the Dirk Gently books. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency and The Long Dark Teton of the Soul. And this kind of mismatched box set. It came as kind of a tie-in to the movie when I got it, and then I got really annoyed about having the TV cover, so I bought another copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but it didn't really fit in the box set, so now it's just weird, and I should probably just get rid of the box. When I was a teenager, I was kind of obsessed with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I haven't reread it in a while. I tried to not long ago, and I felt like it was a lot more awkward than I remember. And I'm gonna have to give it another reread because I loved it, and it would be really disappointing if I don't like it as much anymore. I read a whole bunch of biographies of Douglas Adams, and I loved them, so hopefully I won't find them awkward again when I reread them. I've got this little lamp leg, which is from A Christmas Story, and it lights up. And then I have The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I haven't read many of his other books yet, and I really want to because I love this one. And I have Feed by M.T. Anderson. This is sort of a teen dystopian book about people who have computer chips in their heads, and you can kind of access the internet 24/7, but you're also advertised to all the time. And again, I loved this book as a teen. I even recommended it to a bunch of my friends a couple of years ago, and they all loved it too. I think this is a really timely book, and I love its take on advertising, which works really well right now. I got Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which I got because I love this kind of leather-like cover. Funny story, I actually read this before I read Pride and Prejudice, and this is going to be a totally terrible thing to say, but I kind of liked it better than the original. Then I have Zombies vs. Unicorns, edited by Holly Black and Justine Larba last year. I also got this one signed by Maureen Johnson and Alea Dawn Johnson, as well as Scott Westerfeld. He insisted on having his on that page. When I first got this book, I was so excited I was telling a bunch of my friends about it, and one of them made me this little rainbow unicorn for my birthday because of this book. And it's actually an awesome book, just so you know. Really great takes on different zombie and unicorn mythology. Then we have World War Z by Max Brooks. This is still one of my favorite books. I love how it's kind of a documentary style, and this is another one that I need to reread soon. And then we've got my Orson Scott Card books. These were the original versions that I read, which are kind of the kid versions. Obviously, I'm really angry with Orson Scott Card now for being a giant homophobe, but I read these when I was, I think, 12 or so. I found Ender's Shadow at the grocery store, and I thought the premise sounded really cool, so I actually read Ender's Shadow first, and then I read Ender's Game. And I loved it as a kid. I guess I'll have to reread them soon, knowing what I do about Orson Scott Card, but it's going to be kind of a shame because I'm sure I won't remember them as good as they were when I was a kid. And there's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I read this over the course of probably a year and a half. I think I took, maybe just a year, I think I took a 6-month break in about the middle of it, and I picked it up and immediately was absorbed back in the story. I love the footnote aspect of it. I really do want to reread it, but it's so intimidating to just pick up casually, so it might be a little while before I get around to it again. But I loved it. I just loved the style so much. I didn't really care what was happening. I just loved the writing. Then there's The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer. This is another kind of teen dystopian book, which I was really into as a teen, the dystopian genre, but that was before there were so many dystopian books. But this is a really great one. It's about a kid who is a clone and he basically just exists to help keep this drug lord alive. It's really dark and fascinating book. I definitely want to reread this soon too, which is true of all of these books. That's why I'm keeping them, because I plan to reread them, so I should probably stop saying that. And we've got Little Brother by Cory Doctorow, another teen dystopian book. I love Cory Doctorow for his take on kind of tech future, because he actually knows what he's talking about. He knows what's new in technology and what's probably going to come up in the next 5 years or so, so it seems really accurate. I actually picked up the sequel, but I haven't read it yet. I want to reread this first one before I read Homeland. I had no idea it was going to have a sequel, so that's really cool. I would definitely recommend this, especially if you know some young teens who want to get into dystopian, but anyone, I think it was a great read. It's basically about some teens who are taken in because they're suspected of being involved in this terrorist act, and they're treated terribly, and this is their rebellion because of that. And then I have my Matthew Neil books, English Passengers and Small Crimes in an Age of Abundance. This is the one I read first. It's a collection of short stories, and I love these. They're just kind of heartbreaking stories about these small acts that turn out to have horrible consequences, and it's just this subtle, tragic book. Really interesting premises too. One of them is just about a guy who is sitting on a park bench when he hears a cell phone ring from under the bench, and when he kind of digs it out, it's basically a bag of drugs and this drug dealer's cell phone, and he kind of casually decides to answer the phone and deliver these drugs and ends up almost accidentally becoming a drug dealer. And all of them are just these really interesting, dark stories. And then The English Passengers is basically about the colonization of Australia, specifically of Tasmania, and it's from the perspective of both the colonizers and the people who are being colonized, and it's a really kind of big read, but it's a really interesting one. I didn't know a lot about Tasmania while reading this book, and it definitely piqued my interest. I'd like to read more about it. And I've got this beautiful illustrated Life of Pi by Jan Martel. I've talked about this book before, how when I read it the first time, I kind of wanted to throw it against the wall because of the ending, but it's one that I want to revisit, and I just love these illustrations. I think it would be really cool to reread them with these illustrations in. And I have Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan, so this is my non-lesbian bookshelf, which doesn't mean it's straight. I love this book. I think it's the cutest little cotton candy love story. I desperately wish there was a lesbian equivalent to it. It's kind of a utopian book in a way. It still has some difficult parts in it, but it's about a high school where everyone is really accepting. Star quarterback is also a drag queen, and the cheerleaders come in on motorcycles, and it's just fantastic. It's one that's definitely a comfort read for me. I have The Giver by Lois Lowry. I'm sure you all know about this book, another dystopian one more aimed at kids. I read this as a kid, and I loved it. It doesn't really require much more explanation. And I have Goodnight Desdemona, Good Morning Juliet by Anne-Marie MacDonald. This was a play that was assigned to me in a class, and I ended up really loving it, even though I'm not a huge Shakespeare fan, and it's all about Shakespeare, but it's kind of a rewriting of Shakespeare. It's the only Anne-Marie MacDonald book I've read so far, and if you're a lesbian reader, or especially a Canadian lesbian reader, you're going to be horrified at me for that. But to be fair, I did love this one, and her other ones are on my TBR. And for more proof of my sort of dystopian reading style as a kid, this is Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is the totally beat up copy that I had as a kid, and I still kind of love this cover. So you probably all know what Animal Farm is about. Again, I'm pretty sure I read this when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, and I had no idea that it was supposed to be a metaphor. I could understand some of the bigger implications in general, but I had no idea that it was about actual historical events. But I still loved it, which I think speaks to the strength of the story. Then I have Ruth Ozeki's My Year of Meats. And I picked this up because I was vegetarian and still am. It ended up just being a really great story, and I definitely want to read Ruth Ozeki's other books now. I think this was her first one, but all of her others seem really good too, so I'll be picking those up pretty soon. This is my roommate's cat, who just needs to be in everything. And we've got The Will of the Empress by Tamora Pierce. Unless you're new here, you know I love Tamora Pierce. This is the book that I've owned the longest, but it was actually the 24th book that I read by her because I was reading it kind of in publication order. And it's fantastic, but it's actually not my favorite of her books. It's just the only one that I own. And of course, The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and the mismatched one, The Amber Spyglass. This is another one I doubt I have to explain. This is just a fantastic series. I don't know what happened to my copy of The Amber Spyglass that I replaced it, but I really loved this cover when I saw it. I hate this thing, which is not even a sticker, so you can't take it off. But now I just have a mismatched set, which is fine. And I've got a zombie story, which is Alison Hewitt is Trapped by Madeline Rue. This is such a great read. I picked it up because it's set in a bookstore. Zombie apocalypse in a bookstore. I don't know why you wouldn't immediately want to read it. It's also just a really great take on the zombie genre, and there was a surprise minor lesbian character, so I always enjoy that. I picked up her other zombie book, and I did not like that one half as much. But I definitely recommend this one, especially if you like zombie stories. And lastly, The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. This is one that I think I also read in high school, so it's been a while, but I remember it just being a beautiful read. Not the easiest content, but the writing style is gorgeous, and I definitely want to read more by this author. This ended up being really long, so I'm going to split it into 3 parts. This is the end of part 1, and I'll have parts 2 and 3 out soon. Thanks. Bye.